Hey everyone, welcome back to another video here with Coach Klepto. Today we are looking at a play out of the Tennessee head coach Rick Barnes playbook. Barnes got offered a lifetime contract, actually, I believe over the summer, and I do not blame the University of Tennessee for doing that because if I were to pick one coach to steal all of my plays from for the rest of my life, Rick Barnes would probably be one of those coaches on that list. I will be pulling 3 to 4 plays over the next several weeks from him from strictly this video in the SEC tournament from last year, 2024-2025 season, because the offense just flows so well. It's very impressive. I love it. So I'll be sure to include the link to this highlight reel um, in the description below. But we're going to go through a lot of different plays from Rick Barnes' playbook. This is one of the ones that I was quite a fan of. So we'll go ahead and get started. This play is a play I like to call Waterfall. It's a pretty simple action, not an action you would probably run very frequently just because after a couple of times, the defense would likely catch on. Oh, this is what they're doing. This is how we stop it. But this is a good play to run maybe once or twice a game to get you an easy basket here or there, just to catch the defense off guard. This is another play in the half court. Unlike most of the plays that we've gone through, this actually only has one decoy. That'll be this guy over here in the corner. Everybody else is involved in this play one way or another. Still a pretty simple action. Not everyone does a whole bunch in this play, but we'll go ahead, go through at full speed, and then we'll slow it down and kind of dissect just exactly what happens in this play. So we're going to watch these 4 players. Pretty simple movements, but you'll see why I call this play waterfall in a second. So player at the top of the key, he switches, he moves over to the wing, one dive, and then a second dive to the basket. Pretty easy play to run through. I think this is definitely something you could run at the high school level, maybe at the middle school level if your players are well disciplined, they kind of understand the flow of the game. But let's go ahead, go back and slow things down and digest it a bit better. All right. So first things first, the ball starts off over here in the short corner, essentially. And then we have these 3 players over here. First movement of the play is we have this player. Let's circle him. He is actually not going to touch the ball. He's not going to really try and get the ball. He's calling for the ball right here because he's wide open. And that's not a bad pass if you want him to take a 3-point shot. That's completely valid. Kind of the movement that happens right before this play, this is how he ends up open. This guy is a help defender. So I don't necessarily consider that part of the play. That might have been how Coach Barnes drew it up. But I think, especially at the lower level, we can kind of start the play over here. It doesn't have to start with a drive that baits a help or whatever. For lower level basketball, we'll just assume that the ball starts over here in the short corner. But this player who doesn't get the ball, he's at the top of the key. He is going to come down and not cut to the basket. He's actually going to come over to the wing right there. And then this player is actually going to move towards the ball. And so these 2 players are not exactly trading places, but they are involved in a little bit of movement that keeps the defense a bit more focused on them. So if we keep going, boom. So as soon as this player is already coming this way, he's drawing his defender with him. This player, player number 12, I don't know his name. Sorry, dude. He is going to come over and set a screen for number 2 right here. This is one of the bigs. This is a guard. He's going to come over and set a screen so player number 2, or this player, can move up a little bit. He's going to move kind of towards the ball, going up high. and he's keeping an eye out for him. But because this player is in the help defense, he is a bit more focused on the ball than on his player actually setting a screen. This is a very interesting action because typically speaking, this player should be communicating like, "Hey, watch for this screen, watch for this. He's going this direction." But because he's one pass away, he also has to play help defense here. And that forces this defender into a situation where he has to think a lot. And this is what we want on the offensive side. We want the defenders to have to think about several things at once. And when they see something that they have to respond to, they stop thinking about everything else that they're involved in and just go because they have an assignment and they have to respond to it. And that's just what they have to do. So you see, after this screen, this defender, he has to go back to his defender who's diving to the basket. This player has driven to the basket, pulling his defender right here with him, meaning that these two players, our player and his defender, are now kind of in a one-on-one situation, which is really bad for the defense because he just had to fight through a screen kind of on his own. And so if we clear this and then we go back here, this player is going to go through, but then this player is also going to go through and get an easy 2 points. And here's why that works so well. Let's go back just a little bit. So we have the screen right here. And because this defender has to respond immediately after not being able to help off the screen, being focused on the ball, he is focused on basically catching up to his man because our player has a head start. You'll see right here, this defender, he's behind his man. He has to worry about catching up to his man, and he does not see our player right here who's coming in right behind his teammates to actually get the pass. This defender is so worried about this guy, just like this help defender. These two defenders are so worried about this guy that they have to stop this pass that they can't stop the second player coming through who's about to get the pass. Look at the position and the direction that these defenders are facing when this player comes in to the basket. This defender has his back turned to the ball because he's trying to catch up his man with his man. This defender actually responds pretty well. He sees that this player doesn't get the ball, so he's less focused on him. Help defense here is actually pretty solid. You have this player coming in for a swipe. You have this player who's trying to get a stop. But because this defender has his back to the basketball that is coming down the lane, this player can drive basically straight towards this player, this defender, and get an easy 2 points on that side of the basket. You see, this player has fallen out basically. He has basically gotten out of the way of this player who's actually driving to the basket because he was so focused on following his man. This is why I call this play waterfall because you have one player getting to the basket, drawing the defense's attention, and then another player that's coming right in after him. It's really important that you set a good screen at the beginning of this play. If we go back just a little, we set a good screen right here and that this screen is set essentially one pass away from the ball because that puts this defender in a very difficult situation where he basically has to help out two different teammates of his. He has to watch the ball, keep an eye on it in case this player makes a drive because he's one pass away. He's in the help defense. That's what he has to do. But then he also has a screen going on right beside him involving his man, and it's just too much to handle. You get a good screen, one pass away from the basketball, and then an immediate roll by the player who sets the screen, forcing this player, this defender, into panic mode essentially. He wasn't able to help this teammate over here already, and because he has to switch focus to his man strictly for the next little bit, he can't help this defender at all. But that's Waterfall. Let's take this to the whiteboard, dissect it a little bit more, kind of show just a different angle of looking at this play. Once we're done there, we'll wrap things up.
All right, let's go through Waterfall one more time. So what's interesting about this play is actually how the ball gets into the spot that it kind of remains throughout the majority of this play. The ball can either get here, which is a little bit higher than the short corner, not quite towards the break, but kind of in between the break and the short corner, more or less, either by the person who brings the ball up the floor or somebody else driving to the basket this way and then backing out just a little bit to a mid-range position, or catching the ball there via a pass. This kind of depends on who we want to play what role offensively on our team. So you could just put one player there, have them catch a pass, and then they'll be the person who makes the read and passes at the right time. Or you could have that person just be the person who brings the ball up the floor and they're keeping a live dribble throughout the play. So that's our ball handler, or the person with the ball. We also have our decoy, who is in the opposite corner, and their focus is to bring their defender opposite to the ball. So if we have our defense, if we throw our defense in right here, this defender is probably right here, more or less, and this defender is more or less right here. Depends on how good this decoy is at shooting, spacing the floor. If he's a great shooter, it'll be closer, which would be ideal for us because the play is going to be happening right here in the paint. So ball handler, decoy, and then we have our three other players. We have C1 right here. We have C2 on the wing. And then we have, in the film right here, is our spacer. We can have them start above the three-point line or beneath it. In the film that we saw, they were beneath the three-point line, so that's just what we'll go with for now. But we want to make sure that these three players have a good amount of space between them. So if right here is a bit too close for them, then maybe have cutter one either back out a little bit or get a little bit closer to the ball handler. Depends on how the defense is guarding these three players. So this is our spacer, S. C1 is cutter 1. C2 is cutter 2. Play starts. After the ball gets over here, kind of towards the short corner, the spacer fakes a cut to the basket, more or less, and then they come out over here, kind of taking the place of C2. So as this player, as the spacer, gets around the far elbow and starts working up towards the three-point line, drawing his defender with him, cutter 1 makes a move to set a screen for cutter 2. This screen is going to take place right about here, more or less where the spacer starts, but a little bit closer to the basket. Cutter 1 is going to come up and set a screen for cutter 2. And it's going to be a screen in this direction to give the defense the impression, oh, they're going to swing the ball to cutter 2, who's going to catch it for an open 3 at the top of the key. And so cutter 1 comes in as the spacer is clearing out. Cutter 2 will come up and come off the screen towards the top of the key. Timing here is everything. This is the most important part of this play. As soon as cutter 2 comes off the screen and cuts away from the basket, cutter 1 is then going to roll. What the defense is expecting here is a pass to the top of the key. And when that doesn't happen, when the pass doesn't immediately go to cutter 2, when the focus is drawn away from cutter 2, that makes the defense panic a little bit. So what happens is the defense is focused on cutter 2 getting free for an open shot at the top of the key. But what happens that causes the defense to panic is cutter 1, as soon as that screen happens, as soon as the player comes off the screen, cutter 2, cutter 1 cuts to the basket. That makes this defender or this defender depending on whether or not there's a switch. This defender, as we saw in the play, follows cutter one, and when cutter one sets the screen and then rolls to the basket, cutter one cuts hard, and this defender gets nervous and is sprinting right after him because holy crap, I have an open man running to the basket. I have to stop that. So this defender's eyes are completely focused on this player cutting to the basket and the ball. This defender's thinking, deny, deny, deny. I have to make sure this pass doesn't come through. But this opens an opportunity for cutter two, as we see in the film. Cutter two, who's officially moved over here, probably a little bit lower, but for the sake of the visual representation, being able to see everything, we'll just say they're up here. With this defender so focused on stopping the pass to cutter one, they cannot focus on anything that's going on behind him. This defender, cutter two's defender, has tried to come around the screen, recover, make sure cutter two doesn't get an easy look, but then cutter two, after this screen, executes a backdoor cut and follows cutter one to the basket, thereby losing his man, and the help defense isn't ready to respond because they're so focused on guarding their man. So that's why I call it waterfall, because it's one stream and then two streams to the baskets, kind of like a cascading effect. By doing this, we're able to make one defender panic, thereby taking him out as a help defender, and then with the effects of a screen followed by a backdoor cut timed correctly, we get an open cutter to the basket, and the ball handler hits cutter two right there. One other important detail that we want to make sure happens is when cutter one cuts to the basket, unless they actually break free and get an easy layup or dunk themselves when cutting to the basket, we want them to just roll through, keeping their defender with them, and roll this way. We want them to roll this way because if we roll this way, where does that put the defender in relation to the ball and cutter two? It puts this defender in between and gives them the chance to get in the passing lane, step over, take a charge, or block cutter two. This player is actually the most important player in this entire play. They first set the screen to help this player lose their defender. Then, with a quick cut to the basket, they draw their defender away from the play and basically negate any potential effect or impact that they have as a help defender. And that's why cutter one is so important. Cutter one is the player that opens up everything for everyone else. So, just to quickly review the roles, we have B as the ball handler, person who just has the ball throughout the duration of the play, or at least most of the play. It's best if this player's defender isn't giving a lot of pressure, just because that would make the pass that much more difficult. Whether this player gets to that position by themselves, keeping a live dribble, or whether they get the ball there in a pass and they're put in a triple threat position, or they're able to maintain a triple threat position, that doesn't matter so much. D is our decoy. In this play, we want our decoy, our one decoy. I know we're used to having two decoys a lot of the time, but in this play, our decoy, we want them to be one of the best shooters on the team, at least one of the best shooters that we have on the floor at that time. We want to draw this defender right here closer to them and keep them out of the play as a help defender as much as we can. They're going to be corner sitting, but that's what we do a lot of the times when we have decoys in these plays that I tend to draw up. S is our spacer. I would say our spacers should either be the best shooter or at least a solid shooter. That way they also keep their defender close to them as they're coming around to this side. And so, because we're not actually looking for an open three. However, if we have the spacer coming around to this side and you have the cutter, this cutter, coming around, coming off the screen, the defense might respond mentally and think, oh, they're going to swing it up top and then swing it to the spacer. The spacer is going to take the shot over here, or they'll swing it to the decoy. But that's not what's going to happen. With these good shooters, we want them to draw the defense away as much as they can. And if they don't draw the defense away like at all, then we can have a knockdown shooter from by kicking it out when we're in the paint or when we're over here. So, and then we have C1 and C2. And these are our cutters. These are the most important players in this play. For them, timing is everything. They don't have to be great shooters. They don't have to be great at dribbling the ball. This is a play that you could execute at a lower level of basketball, but you do want these two players to understand when is the right time to go, because you want cutter one to have great timing in terms of cutting to the basket after the screen is set, but you also want cutter two to have great timing of cutting to the basket after cutter one cuts to the basket. So if you can master those few things with your team, I think this is a great play to run. It's a little messy looking at it drawn up, but the flow is actually fairly clean when you see it in action on the basketball court. But that's Waterfall. I personally love this play. If you all run this play, let me know how it goes for you. And yeah, that's it for today. I will see you all in the next video.